Serve me in English and I'll pay you $1,000, laughed the millionaire, loud enough for everyone in the cafe to hear. The room went silent. But when the poor waitress turned around, her eyes calm yet burning with quiet dignity, what she said next, flawless English, and then French, Spanish, Italian, and Mandarin, changed not just his morning but his heart and his life forever. The cafe on 7th Avenue was the kind of place where people came to escape the noise of the world, but that morning the air felt heavy. A young waitress named Lena moved between tables, her small notepad clutched tightly in her hand. Her uniform was clean but worn, her shoes squeaked slightly with every step. She had been working double shifts for weeks, trying to save enough for her mother's medication. The cafe was full of morning chatter, and then he walked in Daniel Graves, a well-known millionaire investor who had recently gone viral for his arrogance during a TV interview. He was the kind of man who carried himself like he owned everything his eyes touched. His tailored navy suit, gold cufflinks, and watch that probably cost more than Lena's yearly rent drew every gaze. He sat by the window, crossed his legs, and looked at his phone without glancing up when Lena approached. "Good morning, sir. What can I get for you?" she asked politely, her voice soft but professional. Daniel smirked without looking at her. "Serve me in English and I'll pay you $1,000. The words hung in the air. Two businessmen nearby looked up from their laptops. An older couple frowned. Even the barista behind the counter froze mid-pour. Lena blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. "Sir." Daniel finally looked up, eyes cold and amused. "You heard me. You're clearly not from here. Let's make it fun. Serve me in English if you can." The smirk on his lips was sharp, and a few people chuckled uncomfortably. To him, it was a joke. To her, it was humiliation in front of strangers. But instead of shrinking back, Lena took a slow breath. Then she spoke clearly, confidently, with perfect English that carried not just grammar but grace. "Good morning, sir. Would you like your usual arrogance with your coffee, or shall I bring a slice of humility on the side?" The cafe went completely silent for a beat, and then someone snorted. A few people laughed quietly, unable to help themselves. Daniel's smirk faltered. He hadn't expected that. She continued, her voice calm, unwavering. "Or perhaps you'd prefer I serve you in another language to make it worth your $1,000. Before he could respond, she switched effortlessly into French, greeting him as if they were in a Parisian cafe. Then Spanish, her tone melodic and confident. Then Italian, warm and expressive. And finally Mandarin, the tones perfectly balanced and fluid. Each sentence hit him harder than the last. The millionaire who had spent his life speaking with money now had no words at all. When she was done, Lena smiled softly. "Will that be cash or card, sir?" The cafe erupted in applause. Daniel felt his ears burn, but not from anger, from something deeper. Shame, admiration, maybe even awe. He'd spent years believing money gave him power, but in 1 minute this poor waitress had turned his arrogance into dust. He didn't say another word as she walked away, her back straight, head high. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she'd looked at him, not with hate, not even pride, but with quiet strength. He had met countless people who flattered him for his wealth, but no one had ever looked him in the eyes and made him feel small for using it wrongly. The next morning, he did something completely out of character. He went back to the cafe. Lena was behind the counter, tying her apron. She froze when she saw him. "Are you here to test my Swahili today?" she asked dryly. Daniel chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. "No, I came to apologize." He placed a small white envelope on the counter. "You earned this yesterday." Lena hesitated, then peeked inside. There was a check, $1,000. "I don't want your money," she said softly, pushing it back toward him. "It's not about money," he said. "It's about respect. I misjudged you badly." She studied him for a moment, then sighed. "Apology accepted, sir, but I'm not your entertainment. I'm just a girl trying to help her mother walk again." Something in those words broke through him. He nodded slowly, realizing how small his world had been, built of boardrooms and bragging rights with no space for compassion. "Would you have dinner with me?" he asked after a pause. Lena blinked. "Dinner with the man who mocked me?" He smiled faintly. "With the man who wants to learn why that was wrong." Over the next few weeks, they met again, not in fancy restaurants but in small, quiet places where the world slowed down enough for honesty. Lena told him about her life, how she'd been a top linguistics student before her mother's stroke forced her to quit school. how she worked nights at the cafe and days tutoring foreign students to pay the bills. Daniel listened like he never had before. For once, money couldn't fix or buy what he wanted, understanding. One evening, as they walked home, rain began to fall. Lena opened a small, torn umbrella and held it over both of them. He looked at her, this girl who had every reason to hate him, but instead of resentment, there was kindness. "Why are you being nice to me?" he asked quietly. She shrugged, because everyone deserves a second chance, even millionaires with bad jokes. He laughed softly, and for the first time in years it felt genuine. A few months later, Daniel did something no one expected. He launched a scholarship program for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds who were passionate about languages and education, and he named it after Lena's late mother, the Rosa Foundation. At the opening ceremony, Lena stood beside him, her eyes full of tears she couldn't hide. When it was her turn to speak, she stepped forward, her voice steady but trembling with emotion. "People often judge others by what they see, how they speak, dress, or where they work, but kindness speaks in every language, and sometimes the richest people are the ones who have the least." The audience applauded, but Daniel didn't hear them. He was looking at her, at the woman who had taught him more about humanity in one cafe morning than a lifetime of business ever had. After the event, he turned to her. "You changed me, Lena.